Hey everyone, we are working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Start Shedeur Sanders. Don't let Deshaun Watson see the field. Period. Full stop. Pause this video right now and replay that clip one more time, because I need you to understand who just said that. That is not a Shedeur Sanders fan account. That is not a Colorado hype channel posting YouTube shorts at midnight. That is the Dawgs podcast, a Cleveland Browns podcast with a real audience, real credibility inside the Browns fan community, and real skin in the game when it comes to what happens to this franchise. And Josh did not hedge it. He did not say, well, it depends on how Watson looks in training camp. He did not say we should let the process play out. He delivered a verdict. Cold, clean, final. And then he explained exactly why with the kind of football logic that the Watson crowd has been desperately trying to avoid for the last 4 months. I'm Dre Fiver from Dre Reports, and today we are going all the way in on the complete collapse of the Watson starting quarterback case, as told by the Dawgs podcast, backed up by Bernard Watson over at Sports Talk with B-Watch, and bookended by the Myles Garrett trade narrative that the Cleveland media keeps trying to run, even though it makes absolutely no sense to anyone who actually wants this franchise to win football games. Buckle up, this one goes deep. Let's start with the core of Josh's argument on the Dawgs podcast, because I think it is the most logically airtight case against starting Deshaun Watson that any Browns content creator has made this entire offseason, and I want to give it the full treatment it deserves. Josh's argument is not about Shedeur Sanders being spectacular. It is about Deshaun Watson being a liability regardless of outcome, and that distinction matters enormously. Think about it this way. If Watson plays and plays poorly, which is the outcome that his injury history, his age, his 2 torn Achilles tendons, and his recent on-field performance all point toward, you have confirmed what everyone already suspects. You have wasted a season. You have damaged your fan base's patience even further. And you have given a 5th-round quarterback who deserves real reps behind a starting offense exactly 0 developmental runway. That is the bad outcome. But here is the one that Josh is really warning about, and this is the part of his argument that I think is genuinely underappreciated. What if Watson plays and plays well? What then? You have spent an entire season building leverage for a quarterback who is in the final year of a contract. A quarterback who by his own financial history will walk back into whatever negotiation follows a strong season and demand compensation. A quarterback whose best-case scenario this year actively hurts the franchise's long-term position. Josh put it plainly when he said, what good do you have by playing him this year? And the answer, when you actually sit with it, is nothing. There is no scenario where prioritizing Deshaun Watson's 2026 reps serves the Cleveland Browns' future. None. Now let me bring in the injury reality, because I think the national media has done the Cleveland fan base a serious disservice by not being direct about what 2 torn Achilles tendons actually mean for a quarterback in his 30s. Bernard Watson over at Sports Talk with B-Watch addressed this directly, and I think he got it exactly right. He said, Deshaun Watson's body is shot. And before anyone tries to frame that as disrespect or negativity, let me be clear about what the medical reality of this situation actually looks like. 2 Achilles surgeries. A quarterback who was already not fully healthy before the injuries piled up. A guy who has not played a full healthy season of football in Cleveland since the day he arrived. The Achilles is not a minor injury for a quarterback. It affects your drop-back mechanics. It affects your ability to feel pressure and move within the pocket. It affects your arm strength sequencing because your lower body drives your throwing motion. And when you have torn the same tendon twice, the scar tissue, the compensation patterns, the physical limitations do not simply disappear because you have done the rehab. Bernard showed a clip of Quincy Williams blitzing Watson in a drill, and Watson simply not being able to get out of the way. That is not a conditioning issue. That is a structural limitation, and putting that structural limitation in front of a defense in September of 2026 and calling it a quarterback competition is not fair to the team, not fair to the fans, and frankly, not fair to Deshaun Watson himself. Here is the part of this story that I want to spend real time on, because I think it is the piece that ties everything together and explains why voices like the Dawgs podcast, Sports Talk with B-Watch, and increasingly everyone outside the established Cleveland media infrastructure is arriving at the same conclusion. The competition framing was always backwards. Josh said it on the Dawgs podcast, and I want to echo it clearly. When the very beginnings of this offseason produced quotes about Watson being the leader of the competition, about Watson being definitively ahead, about Watson walking back into that building and reclaiming the room, those quotes were being generated during a period when nobody had put on pads, nobody had run a real practice, nobody had faced a live defense. They were in t-shirts and shorts, and the people sourcing those quotes, The insiders and beat reporters who were feeding that Watson-first narrative were doing so based on organizational posturing rather than on-field evaluation. And now OTAs have opened, and Todd Monken is sitting at a podium refusing to name Watson as the starter. And Quincy Williams is telling reporters both quarterbacks are confident, accurate, and on time. And the Dawgs podcast is saying full stop, start Shedeur Sanders. The gap between the pre-Oda Watson narrative and the actual OTA reality is not a small gap. It is a canyon. And the people who built that narrative are now trying to quietly move the goalpost to training camp without acknowledging that their sourcing was wrong. Now let me give you the Bernard Watson read on the inter-squad scrimmages, because I think this is one of the most tactically accurate predictions about this quarterback competition that anyone has made, and it deserves to be amplified. Bernard has been saying for 2 months, as he pointed out himself during this segment, that the inter-squad practices against other teams are going to be the definitive evaluation moment of this entire competition. And here is why he is absolutely right. OTAs are controlled. The defense knows the plays. The offense knows the blitz packages. The coordination is designed to let players install the system without the full physical and mental chaos of real competitive football. It is a learning environment, not an evaluation environment, in the truest sense. Training camp against your own teammates introduces more intensity, but still involves men who know each other's tendencies, who have studied each other in meetings, who can anticipate what is coming because they are running the same playbook. But when you put these two quarterbacks against a live defense from another NFL franchise, against guys who have no film on your offense, against athletes who are trying to make a roster and will bring maximum effort on every single rep, that is when you find out who can actually play quarterback in the National Football League under conditions that approximate real game pressure. And Bernard's argument is that under those conditions, the gap between a 23-year-old quarterback who has been competing against elite athletes his entire career and a 30-year-old quarterback with 2 torn Achilles and a shoulder surgery is going to become visible in a way that no one in the Watson corner will be able to explain. Let me give you my complete Dre Fiver take on the Watson situation right now, because I want to be fully transparent about where I stand and why. I am not celebrating Deshaun Watson's struggle. I am not rooting for a human being to fail. The version of Deshaun Watson who played for the Houston Texans was genuinely elite. He was a top 5 quarterback in the league at his best. He could extend plays, read defenses, make all the throws, and carry a franchise on his back. That version of Watson, if you could freeze him in 2018 and drop him into the 2026 Cleveland Browns roster under Todd Monken's offensive system, would absolutely be a legitimate starting quarterback. But that is not the quarterback walking the halls in Berea right now. The quarterback in Berea right now is a 30-year-old with 2 major Achilles surgeries, a shoulder surgery, years of organizational loyalty debt that the team has already paid emotionally and financially, and a recent on-field track record that does not support the coronation narrative that certain media figures have been running since January. And when the Dawgs podcast, a credible Browns-specific platform with no agenda beyond wanting the franchise to win, tells you plainly that starting that quarterback over a healthy, confident, accurate, on-time 5th-round prospect is a mistake. The correct response is not to dismiss them as haters. The correct response is to ask why so many independent voices keep arriving at the same conclusion from different directions. Now I need to address the Myles Garrett trade narrative, because Bernard brought it up and I think he is completely right to be suspicious of the framing, and I want to dig into why this keeps coming up in the Cleveland media. The argument, as it has been presented by various NFL insiders and national media figures, is that the Browns should consider trading Myles Garrett for draft capital, first-round picks, future assets, the logic being that if you are in a rebuild, you maximize your resources by moving your most valuable tradable asset. And on the surface, if you are constructing a purely theoretical front office exercise, you can make that math work on paper. But here is what that argument requires you to ignore. It requires you to ignore that Myles Garrett is the best defensive player in the National Football League. It requires you to ignore that he is the anchor of a defensive system that Quincy Williams just described as speed, 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 and violence, and that you simply cannot build that culture around a player you drafted from a trade package. It requires you to ignore that Todd Monken is installing an offense that, if Shedeur Sanders wins this competition and develops into the franchise quarterback that his talent suggests he can be, makes the Browns a legitimate threat in the AFC North within 2 seasons. And most importantly, it requires you to ignore that Myles Garrett has never asked out, has never demanded a trade, has never done anything but show up and be the most dominant defensive player on the field every single Sunday he has been healthy. Bernard asked the question that every Browns fan should be asking the people pushing this trade narrative. What NFL team trades their best player when they have a real chance to win? And the answer is none. No serious franchise in a competitive window trades the cornerstone of its defense to accumulate future picks when its offense is potentially on the verge of having a solution at quarterback. You trade for picks when you have no path to winning. The Cleveland Browns in 2026 have a path. Shedeur Sanders is real. Todd Monken's system is real. Myles Garrett is real. The schedule is real. Week 1 in Jacksonville is a real opportunity for this team to go out and make a statement about what they are in 2026. And you do not make that statement by shipping out your most irreplaceable player for conditional third-round picks and a conversation about rebuilding. Bernard's instinct that the trade narrative is being pushed for reasons other than the Browns' best interest is worth examining seriously, because the pattern of coverage around this franchise, the Watson coronation narrative that fell apart at OTAs, the Shedeur character assassination during the draft process, the Myles Garrett trade speculation that serves everyone except Cleveland, does not look like objective sports journalism. It looks like a coordinated effort to shape the story before the field can tell it. Here is the final alignment I want to leave you with before we close, because I think when you put all of these voices together, the picture is impossible to ignore. You have the Dawgs podcast, Cleveland-rooted, Browns-focused, telling you start Shedeur Sanders full stop. You have Sports Talk with B-Watch connecting Watson's physical limitations to what you can literally see on film. A quarterback who cannot evade a linebacker blitz because his body has been through too much. You have Todd Monken at the podium refusing to name Watson as the starter while confirming Shedeur has come miles. You have Quincy Williams, a linebacker from the Jets, with zero organizational agenda, telling you both quarterbacks are confident, accurate, on time, and asking him for defensive intelligence. Equally, you have Jarvis Landry and Leonard Fournette defending Shedeur's character and his confidence. Publicly, you have Deion Sanders Jr. sitting in an extended hotel room living through the pain of the draft fall and arriving at the conclusion that the plan backfired and everything is now 100-fold. And you have Myles Garrett, the best defensive player in the league, still in Cleveland, still an anchor for a team that is not done competing. Every single independent voice is reading from the same page. The only voices still running the Watson narrative are the ones with a prior investment in it, and investments have a way of going to zero when the field tells a different story. Drop a comment right now. After everything you have heard from the Dawgs podcast, Sports Talk with B-Watch, Quincy Williams, Todd Monken, Jarvis Landry, Leonard Fournette, and Deion Sanders Jr. himself, is there a single credible argument left for starting Deshaun Watson over Shedeur Sanders in Week 1? I want to read every comment. Smash that like button, share this video with every Browns fan you know who is still being sold the Watson coronation narrative. And subscribe to Dre Reports right now, because we are the only channel in this space covering the Cleveland Browns quarterback competition with zero filter, zero agenda, and zero interest in protecting a story that the field has already disproven. Dre Fiverr. Dre Reports. We out.